Now that we've set the scene, let's move forward to our first panel of today. During this session, we are focusing on locally led and sustainable partnerships with civil society organizations. In this session, we will explore how to promote equitable partnerships to advance more effective SEAH prevention and response with the amplified voice of civil society. We will look at two examples of localization in the form of case studies of Hiwot, which is the RSH Ethiopia local affiliate partner, and the Women's Rights and Health Project local affiliate partner based in Nigeria. This is an initiative whereby the RSH hubs in these locations are run by national organizations. This is a new and emerging model of localized delivery. We will hear strategic reflections and learning from the research that has been undertaken by Terre des Hommes and the accountability work of the CHS Alliance. This can guide further action on creating more equitable partnerships and localized solutions. On this panel, we have four great speakers. We have Aberra Wondimu, who is the SG lead with Hiwot. We have Mathilde Belli, the SEAH Harmonized Reporting Scheme lead with the CHS Alliance. We have Martin Gallard, the Partnerships and Localization Manager with Terre des Hommes. And we have Bose Ironsi, the Executive Director of the Women's Rights and Health Project. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. And audience, in the meantime, we are happy to hear from your perspectives as well. We would like to know, what should effective partnership with smaller CSOs look like? According to you, of course. But please share your reflections in the chat. Take some time to think about the question, what should effective partnerships with smaller CSOs look like? And share your reflections in the chat. For this panel, we will start with Bose Ironsi, who will share insights from her role as the founder and director of the Women's Rights and Health Project. Bose, could you please tell us more about the nature of your work with community-based organizations in PSEH?
Thank you so much. Women's Rights and Health Project, managers of the Unity Resource Center, was established 15 years ago. And it has been a journey of engagement, collaboration, and working with grassroots communities as agents of social change in various states in Nigeria. We have a high level of collaboration, and we believe that as a grassroots organization, a national organization, there is need to empower community. And recently, we have been very specific, engaging community-based organizations who are not well served when it comes to organizational structures and building their capacity to be able to address issues that affect their community. So over years, we have had an entry point where we simplify the various policies and laws, because we believe that when the community and the people understand the law, they will be able to engage with the governments. They will be able to identify the spending of government, the policies of government. So for the past years, we have been able to make a lot of inputs. But beyond that, so WRAHP is a women-led organization that promotes the health and general development of women, young people, and community using the right-based approach. Like I mentioned, it's using, making sure that the policies that have been put in place, that the community people are able to participate in. So WRAHP is also the manager of the Unity Resource Center, providing integrated legal and psychosocial support, safe space for women survivors of domestic violence and other vulnerable communities, people in the community. This became very important because we realized that yes, we amplify the voices of community people, but providing what happens to their mental health if the process of getting justice is ongoing. And so that enabled us to to open Ireti Resource Center to manage cases, help them to build their capacity, and carry out psychosocial therapy, and actually also been involved in mediation. Next slide, please. And so it's been, like I mentioned, we have a vision of a just society where the dignity of women, young people, and communities are respected, and they enjoy standard and can, maximize their full potentials. Their full potentials to participate in issues that concerns them. And we do this through right-based approach. We aim to improve the health and development of women, young people, community by equipping, mobilizing people as agents of change through information sharing, capacity building, and advocacy. And RAHP has a core value of gender equality and inclusion, respect for the rights of women. We have a high level of integrity and accountability, excellence, professionalism, and innovation. And we try as much, for example, the Ireti Resource Center is one of its kind in Nigeria where people can actually come and get a safe place to interact with trained psychotherapists, counselors, and help to mitigate issues of responding to issues of SGBV. So over years, we have done a lot of engaging community people. We have, next slide, please. We have a lot of community people that we have really worked with. Like I mentioned, our thematic areas are health, institutional support system. I will dwell more on that institutional support system, human rights and rights of women and girls, sexual and gender-based violence, and then prevention and management of sexual and gender-based violence. And then we're also so much concerned about the health of the community, because we believe that the community and the women and the girls, they have a stake in the development of their own community. And this transcends across about 3 states that where we are working extensively. So in the past time, RAHP have developed a safeguarding policy and the stuff that when we had interaction with RSH 2001, it was an eye-opener to us, for us to be able to develop, to look at how can we build in sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment policy into our program, and as an organization, and also with the community groups that we are working with. So what we did was to develop a safeguarding policy in the organization, and also had a staff code of conduct. So when you are coming into our organization for the first time, those are the things you need to understand, that sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment is a no-no for us. As also, we also printed 30 copies of the safeguarding protocols, which we are constantly engaging with the community people. We simplified the safeguarding policy into 20 copies of IEC materials. And that has helped a lot in us interacting with the community. We also, not just within the organization, we were engaged by the EU in an EU program where we manage 11 community-based organizations. And what we did was to infuse help them to develop the safeguarding policy. And we also have conducted sensitization sessions of safeguarding practices with community groups that we work with. And then we have trained 18 community ambassadors from 6 local governments in Alimosho on community safeguarding. So constantly they are reporting and sending us information about what is going on in the various communities that they are engaged. So what's next? What are we next for us? Next slide, please. Is that as a local athlete, we were so excited to have selected as the local appellate partner for the RSH hub in Nigeria. And so we are planning, we recently have a 5-day workshop for project handover. And we are now developing the engagement strategies and deliverables by both teams. But beyond that, I want to say that one of our strategies is to various other projects that we are going through. For example, we are going to be working with 30 community-based organizations, and we are going to be strengthening their systems. And what we intend to do is to also infuse safeguarding policy into their, organizational systems. This is very important because that is the only way we will be able to enter the community and make sure that the community people are holding various other governments or humanitarian groups within the community accountable. And I must say that the collaboration, the partnership we have built over years has helped in the sense that we constantly integrate what we do with the community people. For example, in our strategic plan, they are there to give us, we partner together to create a lot of strategies and co-create programs that goes into the community. Recently, we were given a fine new bus with the government. We are in close contact with the Lagos states, Edo states, and some other states. I have worked in the northern Nigeria where we are also constantly working with international organizations to be able to see how we are putting issues of guiding policies in their various organizations. We also have private organizations who have also reached out to us. For example, we recently launched an air care project, which is an app that responds to issues of SGBV. But we know very well that in it, we have issues of safeguarding and harassment. And so we tend to also work with the app to be able to reach across Nigeria so that people can be reporting issues of harassment and abuse at every level. And I think that this has been an eye-opener, and then there are lots that is worth doing. And I want to say safeguarding is the key in terms of building the capacity of people to take decisions that affect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bose, for sharing your thoughts with us and also for describing your journey on becoming a local affiliate partner. Audience, of course, we are curious to hear your reflections on Bose's presentation, so please share them in the chat. And if you have a question for Bose, please use the Q&A button. I saw some questions coming up about whether presentations will be made available. Yes, they will definitely be made available to you. At the end of the conference, after the end of the conference, you will receive a message from RSH that contains a link to all the resources that have been discussed during this conference, which includes the presentation, but also any other tool or resource that was presented by the speakers. Now let's shift focus on broader civil society engagement and greater accountability in the sector. The CHS Alliance has been very active on this. So Mathilde, could you share with us what the work of the CHS Alliance has been on PSCH accountability with CSOs specifically?
Thank you, Fabienne. Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. I also wanted to thank Bose for a great presentation and sharing the incredible work that's been done by WRAHP. It was really interesting for me to hear how your partnership with RSH not only strengthened your PSCH practices, but also positioned you for broader recognition and growth. It really inspired me to see kind of how you've used this newfound leadership to become then a catalyst for change in Nigeria, which kind of extended this positive impact to other organizations. And you talked a lot about community-based organizations across the country. So that was really interesting. So the idea of empowering local partners like WRAHP to really lead resonates deeply with me, as this approach, I think, not only promotes sustainability and advances localization, but most importantly, it amplifies our impact with the communities we aim to serve, which is really what we're all working towards, right? So To answer Fabienne's question, that's really what the CHS Alliance stands for, a global movement of more than 200 organizations with strong representation from CSOs who join forces to strengthen accountability and ensure the dignity and safety of those that we serve. So by empowering local organizations through these equal locally led partnerships, we really unite our efforts to create this positive, sustainable change. It's really together that we amplify our impact, making sure that those closest to the communities lead the way towards more accountable and effective aid, as was so well highlighted by WRAHP's success story. So let me tell you a little bit more about the CHS Alliance support to local organizations, which I'm sure you're interested in hearing about today. So at the very center of what we do are the core humanitarian standards. Those are 9 very practical commitments that help organizations ensure that their work is accountable and effective. So joining the CHS Alliance opens doors to a range of support. You obviously become a part of a global community of over 200 organizations, as I just mentioned, and again, including a lot of national members. And we're all really working together towards better aid. One way that we support organizations to achieve this is through the CHS, what we call verification scheme, which allows organizations to assess their progress against the core humanitarian standards that I just mentioned and identify areas of improvement. So it's a very simple tool that allows you to see where you are and where you need to improve. It's not a really top-down due diligence process, but rather a really collaborative and inclusive process towards this improvement. We offer various pathways, including free or subsidized options to ensure that this is accessible to less resourced CSOs. The CHS Alliance also has several tools to support organizations in their journey towards protecting people from SEAH and to increase accountability more generally and learning when harm does occur. So there's this CHS PSEH index, a lot of acronyms, So the CHS Alliance PSEH index, it's a really simple tool to help organizations verify their performance against the CHS, specifically on SEAH, which we're talking about today. So that's really your checklist to see if you have the policies and the practices in place to protect people from SEAH. To make reporting easier, we have the SEAH Harmonized Reporting Scheme, which gives you access to a really easy to use and free platform to track and report SEAH incidents, see trends for your organizations and across the sector, and report to your donors or partners in just one click. To ensure accountability to survivors, we have the Investigator Qualification Training Scheme, or the IQTS, which provides training and mentorship to investigators, allowing organizations to have the qualified personnel to investigate SEAH incidents when they occur, to support survivors, and to comply with global standards. And again, we have significant subsidies available for low and middle income countries to really reduce the financial burden on organizations. And finally, to help you prevent SEAH, there's the Misconduct Disclosure Scheme, which allows you to safely share and collect information about past misconduct during hiring, making sure that known abusers can't move around between jobs undetected and cause more harm. We're also really excited to launch the CHS Locales, which is a new initiative to collectively assess aid effectiveness at the country level, with, again, local actors really playing a big role here, and to prompt action to really close that gap between the expectation from the people who are receiving the assistance and between the ones who are providing it. So by piloting this locale approach in 4 countries next year, including Bangladesh, Ukraine, South Sudan, we'll support local organizations who are not familiar with the core humanitarian standards to meet their commitments. So this initiative really aims at building sustainable, locally led partnerships and empowering smaller CSOs to lead the way in making aid more accountable and more effective. Now, what does this mean in a very concrete example? Let me talk to you today about an organization called Women Empowerment Action, which is a feminist, women-led organization in Ethiopia. They undertook their verification against the CHS back in 2021, and here the costs were covered by a subsidy fund. Since then, they've improved how they prevented and responded to SEAH, thanks to measuring their work against the core humanitarian standard and being involved in several CHS Alliance projects. For instance, through a partnership with CHS Alliance on a project called Closing the Accountability Gap, they were able to better protect women and girls in camps for displaced people in Aberra in Ethiopia from SEAH. For the very first time, they had the resources to design the project entirely based on the needs and priorities of vulnerable women and local women's group, underscoring how critical the voices of women and girls are. The project also raised awareness about SEAH, both protective measures available, reporting mechanisms, with women and girls expressing today that they now feel more informed about their rights and how to report complaints, particularly because they can give feedback in their local language, as we discussed yesterday. This participatory approach really helped them build a trust with the community, which we know is crucial in addressing SEAH. So I'd like to share a quote from Marta Wayesa, who is the executive director of Women Empowerment Action, which kind of reflects on this journey through the different CHS initiatives. Our experience shows using the CHS as a tool for improvement significantly strengthened an organization like ours, one deeply committed to furthering the rights of women, with accountability as a cornerstone of our operations. We are now one of the strongest and largest women-led civil society organizations in Ethiopia. So for me, this is what localization and locally led partnership looks like: empowering local organizations to lead, to build trust, and to make aid safer and more effective for the communities. If we want partnerships to have a real and sustainable impact, we must move away from this top-down approach. Partnerships shouldn't be a means to advance our work. They should be about empowering our partners to gradually take the lead. And to achieve this, we must build on mutual respect and collaboration, and really with local voices driving the solutions. Thank you very much. Back to you, Fabienne.
Thank you so much, Mathilde. It's great to hear of these important initiatives. And a reminder for the audience, any kind of tool or resource that is being shared by the presenters will be made available to you after the conference. We will shortly hear from Aberra, who works with Hiwot, which is another RSH local affiliate partner organization. They have taken over as a national organization for delivering the RSH Ethiopia Hub. I would like to also repeat my message to all the speakers to please deliver your message at a slow pace so that the translators can actually translate your important messages to French and Arabic. So thank you very much in advance for that. Aberra, we're very curious to hear about your experiences. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Aberra. I'm working for Hiwot Ethiopia as a safeguarding technical lead, and now we are locally local affiliated partner for RSH in Ethiopia. So we are supporting technically and mentorship as safeguarding focus for Hiwot as so. Hiwot is technically supporting the teams. Next slide, please. Hiwot is a local CSO established in 1995. Its vision is to engage children and youth in Ethiopia to live healthy, happy, and productive lives. So the center of implementation or the center of attraction of Hiwot is children and youth. So we are standing for the protection and good development of children and youth in Ethiopia. Hiwot is implementing or participating in implementing health, education, human rights, gender equality, economic support, environment protection, livelihood, and also in emergency response programs. And disability and environment are sector-specific issues for Hiwot Ethiopia. As a local affiliated partner, RSH through social development partners selected and through rigorous process, we are selected as local partners. So Hiwot Ethiopia exhibited a remarkable achievement in the previous UK fund with civil society support program, and it was supported by UKAID and other partners, and we are supporting almost 66 local implementing partners of the UKAID project. So through that, we have a good experience and a track record on supporting the local CSOs on safeguarding and how we support them to how to analyze their safeguarding activities in their organization. As a local leadership safeguarding for RSH sustainability, one of the key issues. So on the past program, we supported almost 76 CSOs and 21 government partners to practice safeguarding, at least have safeguarding policy and code of conduct in their organization. And prior to that, we have established, prior to the same social development direct due diligence and capacity assessment, Ethiopia was supporting the UK aid partners on civil society support fund program. So as a local affiliated partner, we supported 76 CSOs in 21 government offices to have a practice of safeguarding, at least to have safeguarding policy and also a code of conduct. Through that, after the completion or the phase out of the UK aid program, we established a safeguarding working group among 66 CSOs, civil society organizations in Ethiopia, by our initiative, by Hiwot Ethiopia initiative, and also established a steering committee around them. Then we supported those CSOs after the completion of the project. Through that, we enhance the capacity of this organization with different technical supporters. We advise them to use formats, to use the models through online RSH Hub platforms to practice the safeguarding samples, CSOs, or code of conduct, safeguarding model policy frameworks, and to use the self-assessment to enhance the framework of their safeguarding policy. And also we are promoting as RSH local affiliated partner to local CSOs to have e-learning courses, which is safeguarding matters on the online platform of the RSH. So there are a lot of demands from the local CSOs, especially based on the conflict arose in North Ethiopia and other natural disasters. There are a lot of demands from the national CSO and networks for safeguarding, especially from the north. There are a lot of victims, so we are supporting them how to manage a case management approach in their locality. Next slide, please. As an approach, we are using now the regional CSO networks, because in Ethiopia we have regional CSO networks, which is an umbrella for the regional CSOs. All CSOs are, accountable for the umbrella network. So we are working through that to promote the safeguarding capacity to the local CSOs. Also, we are working on building our capacity through different angles to cope up with the national and global safeguarding movement. So we are working the interagency standing committee PSA network in Ethiopia, CHS Alliance, and also the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs. For example, we are participated for Fit for PSA Forum Theater, which is very new approach to to disseminate the safeguarding issue in a play modality. So we are advising and participating in such kind of in such kind of events. Also, we are working with CHS Alliance and other Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands on the event which are ensuring protection and accountability, victim or survivor-centered approach. We provide there our technical experience and how do we support, or what we have for the local CSO. So we are working with such kind of organizations. Beyond to that, we are working closely with the PSA Network Ethiopia, and there are a lot of demands from the local partners of of PSA, because PSA network in Ethiopia has almost 147 partners, so there are a lot of demands, and we are approaching with PSA network and supporting those questions coming from the different partners for the PSA network, and we are supporting technically for these organizations and organize different events and workshops around PSA networks. To show some challenges around, it's next slide, please. On the challenges, we have a resource limitation because after the completion of the first support from Social Development Direct, we don't have the resource, but we are working in collaboration with partners, for example, PSA Network, CHS Alliance, Global Alliance Canada, for example. We are provide an overview of our activities, our practices for Global Alliance Canada, CHS Alliance partners, PSA Network partners. Also, we have our own partners, for example, main engage Ethiopia partners, almost 26 CSOs are there. So we are promoting the RSH activities through this kind of networks and collaborations. And the other challenge is that the leadership and understanding of less commitment from the management team of the CSOs in the country about safeguarding and associated with the safeguarding with the project activities. So we are providing a capacity building support or capacity building training on empowering leaders on safeguarding knowledge and governance. We are advising them how to institutionalize the safeguarding activity in their organization, how they can provide a guidance or a guiding principles for their beneficiaries and partners, and how to manage safeguarding issues, and to use the RSH hub, online hub, to have resources from them. And we are pushing donors, because in different networks, we are pushing donors to make safeguarding as a requirement, and also to make safeguarding as organizational core process, because it's not about ticking the box on for the due diligence issue. So we are pushing donors to have a focus on safeguarding or PSA issues. And there is a high demand, which is an opportunity for us for safeguarding technical support from local partners. So we are focusing on PSA and other collaborations to promote our safeguarding capacity for other partners in Ethiopia. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aberra. It was really great to hear the insights from your organization in this process and your method of localization. I know that Martin from Terre des Hommes has done some work in the localization space as well. I'm very curious to hear about the work that your organization is doing in the area of localization and equitable partnerships. So, Martin, what have you learned so far on the work that Terre des Hommes is leading?
Quite a lot, actually. Thank you very much for inviting me. Terre des Hommes has launched since 2022 a new strategy related to partnership and localization, and it has done so through a situation analysis, really in-depth introspective analysis on what its local and national partners wanted to do with Terre des Hommes and what Terre des Hommes wanted to do with them. And so it carried a lot of consultation, a lot of analysis about the purpose of our partnership and how we want to be more equitable and sustainable as an international NGO. So it was very interesting to listen, and that allowed Terre des Hommes to come up with its first global partnership and localization policy. And really the main point of this was to move from a short-term project-based kind of partnership to more structural long-term partnerships, which means potentially limiting the number of partners, but also changing in depth the way we work with them. And so this is also something that was part of Terre des Hommes, as it's always been an organization that worked with local partners, but the purpose of this was also to define our role as what we call being an intermediary for its local partners between donors and international NGOs, UN agencies, and the work that we do for people of concern and the local and national CSOs that we work with. So we defined ourselves in a way, our proximity to Geneva and decision-making centers in the global north will allow us to become, advocate for our partners and be an advocacy champion on the child protection and access to justice matters, but also contribute to the organizational development of our partners and the strengthening of our capacities, our mutual capacities as well. It's very important for us to recognize that our partners are also teaching a lot to Terre des Hommes, and it's both ways, and it's a street that goes both ways. But what we've observed through our introspective work and the publication of this partnership and localization policy, when it comes to PSEH, is that it's oftentimes perceived as a complication and a donor compliance issue by some of the partners that we have, and also even our local, our country teams, Terre des Hommes country teams. And there is in general a lack of human resources or lack of focal points that can be assigned to this position, because there's a lack of resources related to it on the ground in the countries of intervention that we work in. And so we have a strong reliance on donor support. It's quite complicated for Terre des Hommes and its local partners to dedicate their own funding to PSEH practices. And this is due to several issues: the lack of unrestricted funds that local and national actors can benefit from, because the capacity is usually here, especially when it comes to technical expertise that Terre des Hommes has. If it's access to justice or child protection, we work on these topics, and safeguarding is at the center of it. And our partners are usually, in capacity to do that. But what we want is to further support our local CSO partners with concrete funding also to do that. So part of these new objectives in this partnership and localization policy is to transfer further unrestricted funds in the coming years, in 2028, but by 2028, it's our objective year, and to slowly also operate funding, more and more funding transfer by 2028 to our local and national partners, including funding for PSEH policy building, but practices. Sorry, I'm going too fast. This transition and these objectives, they will also go through an online platform that we're launching at the moment, and that will host a series of training on PSEH. It's actually already active. It's called Local Link Hub. It's currently up in English and in Nepali, Bengali, Hungarian, Hindi, and soon Arabic, French, and Ukrainian. But it's a platform that's dedicated to our local CSOs, whether they're partners of Terre des Hommes or not. There's several membership availabilities, but the idea is to provide some trainings as well on PSEA, especially for local CSOs in local languages. And it's a platform that local and national actors are managing collaboratively with us at Terre des Hommes. And so it's a very consultative project that we have, where it's capacity development that goes both ways. Partners are also able, if they want, to host their own trainings and their own practices on this platform. And we're changing the practices that we have internally as Terre des Hommes in the contracts that we have with our local partners. We renewed recently our PSEH policy, and we recognize the safeguarding mechanism that all local and national actors have on a case-by-case basis to have a more equitable and more mutual relationship. again, Terre des Hommes believes in this power shift and this more equitable and sustainable way of working, and localization objectives in the future. And its analysis has allowed it to change and set up new objectives that are more in line with the this power shift objective that we must have. So it's a lot more co-designed and a lot more accepting on the practices that local CSOs have, as opposed to prior to 2022. And we're hoping these objectives to keep going, and it's work in progress, including broadcasting the use of this online platform. So yeah, I think that's about it for my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin, for sharing your thoughts and also for offering some concrete guidance on key components that should underpin partnership and localization initiatives with CSOs. Audience, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box, and speakers, please keep an eye on that Q&A box because questions will be coming your way and they will need some answering. Now, actually, Martin, I'm going to circle back to you now actually already, because I would like to know from our speakers if there's anything else that we need in order to make progress on equitable partnerships. I would like to remind the speakers to please speak slowly so that our interpreters can translate your important messages. I'm asking the question to you first, Martin. What else does it take in order to make progress on equitable partnerships, according to you?
Yes, well, there's a lot, but the most important one perhaps is, as I said, and what we're trying to do is to move from project-based short-term partnerships to long-term structural one. It can be quite hard for international NGOs and local CSOs to maintain a partnership when there's not necessarily funding that follows through, that goes on. But it's very important to maintain that, because the ability that we have to help each other in the long run cannot be just subject to the amount of funding that we get for a period of time. And so building long-term structural partnerships is extremely important. That implies changing the way we see funding as well. Although Terre des Hommes is mostly funded through institutional funding, there is a change that must happen in the sector for us to better accommodate the needs of local CSOs, especially when it comes to unrestricted funding, or what we call overheads. And although it might be hard for international NGOs to do so due to their own requirements to donors, it must be advocated for to our donors, and slowly change the way we function to give local CSOs the liberty to build their own PSEH policies, one example, but it can be plenty of others. Monitoring and evaluation, technical abilities, fundraising possibilities. We need to help the CSOs help themselves, and that goes through offering some capacity development opportunities like we do with Local Link Hub, but allowing further flexible funding, including from within international NGOs, to local CSOs. And perhaps one of the important last one that I would have to, or two last one, is to have adapted tools and avoid repetitive and overburdening due diligence processes. Again, so it goes back to a bit more flexibility about on what we expect in terms of compliance for local partners. It can be quite complex, but there is a little sway that international NGOs have here, and it goes along with boosting our partners' confidence and providing more space to them on the international stage, whether it's through communication, whether it's through the presence at board of directors of international NGOs, or amongst decision-making centers where they're rarely listened to. And that's up to us as international NGOs, but also all of us here working in the different organizations within the humanitarian or the development world. So yeah, perhaps this is my 2 cents on the matter.
Thank you so much, Martin. Aberra, what would you like to add to Martin's words? What else does it take to make progress on equitable partnerships for PSEH, according to you?
Based on our experience, partnership should be midline, and it should be, respect all partners, laws and guidelines, especially on the safeguarding and the PSA equitable partnership, or a partnership should be, a lesson learning kind of opportunity for CSOs locally who have no experience could learn from others. And also when we come to the international donors, the international organizations as a donors, when they provide the support for implementing activities, I think they better address, or rather than, ticking the box, there should be a safeguarding practice in organizations, that they have to start at least safe programming, safe recruitment, and also how to manage human resources, how to handle our beneficiaries, our volunteers, and other issues should be provided for organizations on collaborators. And also we have to promote our projects which has a budget line, maybe 1% or 2% concerning the pace for PSC activity. When we do that as international donors, when we do that, maybe organizations start to practice PSA activities. So they start to practice activities on PSA and other human rights activities at a whole. So that is what my recommendations.
Thank you, Aberra. Next up is Bose. Bose, what are your thoughts on this matter? We're curious to hear.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think we should be very intentional in identifying and be strategic in identifying partners in various states. For example, in Nigeria, we tend to centralize our RSH program in the capital, and then reach out through various networks. Because when you build the capacity of networks, you are actually reaching a lot of people, and at various levels. That's one. Two, it's like I mentioned, to be intentional. Intentional is in the sense that you must mentor and coach organization. Issues of CSOs is still something that is not very known to a lot of people. So we need to constantly engage with the various community-based organizations, NGOs, international organizations, to understand that we must put the issues of policy in their own agenda. I recently spoke with a tech organization, because if you look at, there's a high level of internet-based abuse that is taking place. And I was asking, do you have a policy in your organization that speaks to issues of abuse? And he was said, no, I don't think we have that. And they are big organizations in Nigeria. So we need to be very, very intentional and look at those we are going to collaborate with to amplify that, making sure that the policy gets not just the policy, but also to make sure that they practice what is in the policy. Just to add, is also to see how we can get the federal government to have a law that address safeguarding in Nigeria. Some states are still battling with various laws that speaks to issues of violence against women, for example. So, but then we need to make sure that these states take safeguarding as something that they need to take seriously. Thank you.
Thank you for that last note, Bose. Finally, we would love to hear from Mathilde. What else would you like to add to what has already been said on equitable partnerships for PSEH?
Thank you, Fabienne. Such great answers given by my fellow panelists. It's always really difficult to go last, but I'll try to give kind of 3 points which I think are key. The first one, I think, is trust. trust is essential. And here what Martin said about kind of long-term structural relationships is essential. I think local organizations have a deep understanding of the communities they work in, and we need to, trust and value that expertise. How do you do that? I'd say, it's really about creating that open and that honest relationship with them. So to give an example, at CHS Alliance, we support this by offering tools like the self-assessment against the core humanitarian standards, which allow organizations either to evaluate themselves if they prefer, or we provide that external option. But regardless of the method, we really try to make it a joint effort to ensure that local and international partners share the responsibility for improvement rather than just placing the burden solely on the local partner, which is something that happens far too often. So I think this is also really important, this approach, to have these assessments to avoid this recurrent top-down partnership assessments that are often unrealistic, and particularly when we're working in fast-moving emergency contexts. The second one I would say is kind of stop thinking about partnership as solely about training local organizations. I think local organizations already have a lot of expertise, as I've just mentioned. So it's not about only building their capacity, but sharing knowledge and skills. And that's really linked to the trust point, where we really want to have that open dialogue and focus on what we can also learn from them. And so I can give an example here of the investigator qualification training scheme, which I mentioned earlier, where what we try to do is not just teach, but also pair local investigators with mentors to support them, but also to recognize the skills that they can bring as well, so that we can learn from them and incorporate, their local knowledge into that. So I think true partnership really means learning from each other and not just one side teaching the other. And then lastly, I think we need to make sure that the tools and systems that we use in these partnerships are flexible and fit the needs of local organizations. There's a big component about language that we touched upon yesterday. I think here as well, one example I can give is the harmonized reporting scheme at the CHS Alliance. We really tried our best to make it as easy to use, to adapt to different contexts, to make sure that it's available in several languages. We piloted it with CSOs from local contexts, gathered their feedback to say what works, what doesn't, and really make the tool useful for them rather than trying to impose a tool. So I think that flexibility is really key, and it's not always easy to balance. But I think that's really important so that we focus on achieving results jointly rather than getting stuck in endless processes. So these 3 points of trust, mutual learning, and flexibility, I think that's what again, going back to the long-term structural relationship, I think that's what it really needs to be based on. And then maybe one very last point, also linked to these 3 points, is how can we streamline partnership processes as well, so that partners who have already been assessed and proven their ability to deliver strong and accountable work, what can we do to make sure that they aren't caught up in endless due diligence processes and they can focus on the work? So how can we streamline those processes? And I think that's also something that we're trying to achieve at the CHS Alliance. So really moving from seeing those organizations as participants in the partnership, but rather as leaders in shaping those solutions. So I think these are the things that I would see as key to make sure that those partnerships are much more locally led. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mathilde. And also great thank you to Bose, Aberra, and Martin for your valuable contributions to this important discussion. All the materials and tools, including the ones that are being discussed just now by Mathilde, will be made available to you after the conference. You will receive an email that contains a link to a webpage of the RSH website that has the links to presentations and any other tools and resources that were discussed during the conference. Now is also the time to ask your questions to Mathilde, Bose, Aberra, or Martin. Please use the Q&A box for this so that the speakers will be able to answer your question in writing. During this session, we have learned I have learned so much, among others, the importance of building trust through openness emphasizing the importance of mutual trust and transparency in partnerships. We've learned about the importance of sharing knowledge, not just training, and that we should be shifting from capacity building to capacity sharing, while recognizing and leveraging the expertise of local organizations. We've learned about the need for flexibility in tools and systems, highlighting the need for adaptability and flexibility, and ensuring that tools are co-developed. We also spoke of that learning from RSH local affiliate models can actually inform new models of working, and this will have implications for the wider sector. We've learned that we should take a long-term view on partnerships, not only focus on projects. There's new ways of dialogue, and CSOs are key stakeholders and experts in those dialogues. This is also related to shifting power. We've learned that we should prioritize local knowledge and context when we are designing programs and PSCH initiatives, and we should recognize the unique insights that smaller CSOs bring in this. We know that we should establish mechanisms for continuous feedback and mutual learning between international organizations and CSOs. And finally, we learned about the need for long-term support and sustainability, because only in that way we can ensure that partnerships are designed with a long-term view in mind from the very beginning.